going to be really tough for Montana because, you know, I mean, it's always going to be tough at this top 4 stage, but just an incredible feat for James to kind of get to this stage again. It's not often we have that repeat of players getting to this stage of the tournament again and again.
I mean, yeah, you said it perfectly. But Montana, I mean, look at what he's been able to accomplish, especially within this last little bit. Montana was one of those players that, you know, sometimes there's players that do really well or that we know that there's a skill, but we don't necessarily get to see that on broadcast. And Montana just break out to take down the Los Angeles Regional Championships. And I mean, and this is for all of our top 4, and I'll say it, I'll talk about it for this match, but these 2 players are so nice. And Montana Mott, I mean, I've been able to talk to him, and he's just one of the nicest individuals. Yes. James as well. I mean, I'm going to be so happy for either player and so heartbroken for the other. And just watching them on the stage, both of them just with big smiles. I mean, this is... Oh, man.
This is peak World Championships right here. It really is.
So wholesome.
And, yeah, and I think the team matchup's really interesting as well when you look at the dynamics of what both players have got for support lines, for their restricted choices as well. And it really is a worthy match of a top 4 game at the World Championships. And I think it is going to deliver on every single level. So I can't wait to get into it. But yeah, just both really nice. Just nice people as well, aren't they? Both of them, James and Montana, which is another added bonus for us to kind of see how, you know, pleased both of them are to be in this position. And they deserve all the credit that they get for being here. And such a tough World Championships. I've said it over and over. I think this is the toughest Worlds there's ever been. So for these players to get to this stage is just incredible.
It really is. And I mean, these are really strong teams. So we have strong trainers with strong teams. This makes a lot of sense. And for James, with 2 powerhouse restricted Pokemon here, and looking at it, a little bit of a variation of this NAIC top 32 team. When you're looking at the restricted, that's going to be the run back. Looking at the Brute Bonnet as well, it's not necessarily a Pokemon we get to see with everybody, but being able to really off-put a lot of pressure. And Landorus as well. I know this is a Pokemon of old VGC. It hasn't necessarily picked up for everyone in this format, but the amount of damage it can off-put with those Earth Powers and Sludge Bombs, like this team can make waves.
Yeah, it's been a really niche pick, and I think when we have seen it on broadcast this weekend, it's been one of those really impactful Pokemon that's made the difference in those matches, and obviously doing the same for James. But like you mentioned with the Brute Bonnet, another Pokemon that has that disruptive factor as well, but because it is one of those Paradox Pokemon, it really has a good offensive presence about it as well, so you can't really just kind of leave it alone and ignore it just because of the Spore or maybe that Rage Powder disruption. You've really got to take note. The Seed Bomb, the Sucker Punch that are there can be quite detrimental if you don't give it the respect it deserves.
And that's exactly it. So going into this match, there's definitely a couple of things that Montana has to look out for. But again, Montana's such a skilled trainer, regional champion. And when we're talking about powerhouses of teams, I mean, look at this, everybody. Calyrex, Shadow Rider, and Zamazenta. These were the 2, I mean, most feared restricted Pokemon, especially paired up together. And looking out the supporting cast, I mean, a couple of these are a bit more a typical pick. Qian Pao and Dragonite, though, this was another combination that maybe hasn't been the most popular for this regulation, but Qian Pao, I mean, being able to have that sort of ruin and how much impact that can have with the Dragonite and Zamazenta is everything.
Yeah, and the change up to the item there with the Assault Vest is really a nice change that we haven't seen too much throughout this season, but really popular pick coming into the World Championships, which gives it that longevity. It allows it to sit on the field for a bit longer, to make more use of that sort of ruin with the Zamazenta, with the Dragonite when they are paired next to it, which is really, really something that the opponent wants to kind of cut that line down as soon as possible. The Terra type on that Qian Pao as well, interesting poison, so it's got some way of getting around potential weaknesses. It will have to watch out if that is the choice of Terra here for Montana from that Landorus, because those Earth Powers become a bit more super effective if it goes down that line. But yeah, I think the Dragonite is something that James is going to have to really respect as well. If that gets on the field next to the Qian Pao, that combination, the coverage between those 2 in particular can cause a lot of issues for the things that James might lean into a little bit in this match.
And looking into this matchup with I mean, a typical restricted Pokemon, things that we've seen before with the supporting cast that maybe isn't quite as popular. I'm curious then where exactly we can see this matchup go, because you're talking about making sure this Dragonite and this Chien-Pao isn't in a position to, I mean, just sweep away the game. But again, when you're looking at James and a couple of these Pokemon, specifically the Landorus for me, that is again something that raises the flags, like the caution flags for Montana. Like, you have to make sure this Landorus is not in any sort of position off with that pressure.
Yeah, and I do think that the Calyrexes are going to play a big role in this as well. You look at both of the item choices for both these trainers. They're Focus Sash, so they've got that little bit of a security blanket where you're going to have to spend 2 turns attacking into those Pokemon to remove them from the field, and that's one of those Pokemon that you don't really want to give too much room to or too much time on the field, because of those Grim Neigh boosts that it can get, the damage output that it's got access to, the spread damage. So I think keeping those Pokemon in check in particular is going to be a big key. One of the ways that James can do that, of course, is with Koraidon and getting those flame charges off early, kind of getting the speed jump on the Calyrex. You break the sash, then you're in a position to really pressure it the next turn.
2 powerhouse teams, 2 powerhouse trainers. The journeys that they've taken so far throughout the World Championships has brought them here, but only one can continue into Championship Sunday. Let's get this started as the leads hit the field between James Evans and Montana Mott, and a lot of power already to kick this off.
Definitely a lot of power here. We've got the Koraidon there. It is going to get that Orichalcum Pulse ability, the Sun on the field. So those big fire type attacks are going to straight away threaten the Zamazenta, threaten that Calyrex. Like we said, one of the ways that James can kind of get the jump on the Calyrex is with that flame charge, get that speed boost, and then it will pressure the Calyrex. So I think Montana really needs to protect that as best as possible. At the same time, you can't just leave that Zamazenta kind of alone. So you've got to really kind of pick your target carefully here. If you get the wrong one and a Protect comes out, things could turn quite bad quite quickly. So I think the Koraidon needs to either go after, really be going after the Zamazenta here, maybe expecting the Calyrex to want to protect that sash for the following turn. Of course, as well, you've got the Raging Bolt that has got the priority with the Thunderclap, and it can put out some big damage as well with that photosynthesis boost that it's got under its belt. But don't underestimate the Calyrex. If it goes for an attack, something like that followed up by a body press into the Koraidon could be enough to just remove it from the field.
Well, right away, it's going to be Terrestrialization for the Calyrex Shadow Rider. And when we're looking at the Ghost Terrestrialization, this is, of course, all-out offense, making sure you can do the most with an Astral Barrage. So I feel like we know exactly what's about to come. But, of course, it's going to be Terrestrialization for both of the trainers. James Evans as well, that Koraidon, as you talked about, when you're in the sunny conditions and you have these Fire-type moves, Koraidon with this Fire-type Terrestrialization can do a lot of damage. Now time to see how much the Calyrex is going to do into both of these Pokemon. Of course, Raging Bolt with this Assault Vest, it is going to be a bit better on the special defensive end. And yeah, you can definitely see that pay off. Koraidon makes it through as well. Flame Charge, Terrestrialization into the Sun. Calyrex on the opposing end, brought right down low health. And of course, you talked about that is the speed raise that could help down the line. Body Press, Raging Bolt, 4 HP to hold on. Volt Switch now, Zamazenta. Big survival, and now a pivot from James.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting turn here, and the Raging Bolt being able to barely survive is pretty huge going into that next turn. Seeing the value of that Assault Vest, taking that Astral Barrage there, but the problem now for Montana is haven't dealt with that Koraidon after the Flame Charge coming out, so that Calyrex this next turn is really pressured, especially when you've got this Brute Bonnet that can come out onto the field. It is going to be a little bit more susceptible to those body presses, so you have to be careful around that one there, but the Zamazenta now cannot terrestrialize. It is going to take super effective damage from this Flare Blitz. Which target do you go for if you're James? Do you go after the Calyrex, expecting no Protect there to just get rid of that threat? Or do you go after the Zamazenta, expecting that maybe to be the Pokemon leaned into by Montana to go after that Brute Bonnet, maybe even the Koraidon to remove that threat from the field? It's really difficult, and James is kind of splitting this attention here, making it very difficult for Montana to get any sort of momentum to clear these things off the field. But early on in this,
I mean, for the Zamazenta, it's just going to be the Protect on this turn, so good way to make sure that you're not taking the most from the Koraidon. The Calyrex isn't going to go for that, and the Sucker Punch readied up will take care of the horse over on Montana's end, the first KO of the match.
Yeah, big KO here, and getting rid of one of the restrictors is huge. When you've only got one out on the field for yourself, James, taking it and getting rid of it with that Brute Bonnet is pretty huge. The collision course coming into the Zamazenta there, going into that Protect. and everything to do for Montana here, because without any speed control, that Koraidon going to be the fastest thing on the field with the sun up, but one answer to that is going to be your Dragonite. It has got access to extreme speed, and it can potentially get rid of the Koraidon. The problem is you've got that Rage Powder on the Brute Bonnet that's going to be able to try and drag it in at least one of the attacks from the Zamazenta, maybe not that extreme speed, which will supersede the Rage Powder if we do see it come out.
Yeah, in this Dragonite, this is going to be the choice band set, so it is going to be 1-2 that this is a move that you're potentially locked into for the next couple of turns unless you want to do the one switch out. But then, of course, your next lines are going to be a little bit more telegraphed on what you want to do. So this Dragonite, I'm curious with what it's going to pick into, because, of course, going for the extreme speed and trying to take down the Koraidon could seem really tempting, and that's exactly what we'll see. Koraidon taken down, priority move coming out from Montana. Even the score at 3 Pokemon apiece for these trainers. Looking at the Brute Bonnet on the field now all by itself, and the Zamazenta with the body press. That's going to be a lot of damage into it, but Brute Bonnet has a little bit of bulk to him, can fire off a Spore. Dragonite locked into one move, but you won't be able to use it next turn because you're now asleep.
Yeah, it's a nice way to get a little bit of a return if you're Montana. Then, yes, okay, if I lose the Calyrex here, I'm going to be able to bring my Dragonite in. I've got access to that extreme speed. I'll be able to get rid of the Koraidon with the initial damage. But now the big problem comes as the Calyrex for James now enters the field, and that is going to pressure the Zamazenta with those Psychics. So you've got to be really careful here. The Brute Bonnet in a position where it is protected by that Calyrex and can kind of go for whatever it wants. If it wants to go for a Sucker Punch into the Dragonite, if it stays on the field and tries to burn through those sleep turns. And the nice thing about the Calyrex as well, it doesn't really worry about the Dragonite, what it's locked into, so you can pretty much just ignore it this turn. Despite it being asleep, you don't need to worry about it even waking up, and just concentrate all of your efforts down onto that Zamazenta. Montana cannot really go on the defensive here because of the on-call presence with that Calyrex on James's side. So if you go for the Protect here to maybe stall out these turns, it's very risky. You're going to put yourself in a position where you're going to have to switch that next turn. You really don't want to get yourself into that position where you can't get that momentum swing you're looking for.
I love that call out, because even just the pressure of having that Encore on the Pokemon can really telegraph your plays and what you do going on forward. The Brute Bonnet, it's not going to be one to off-put any pressure though, because Raging Bolt is going to rejoin the battle. Dragonite, that's going to be the first turn of mandatory sleep. Now at any other turn, it can wake up as Calyrex, again, offensive. Astral Barrage into both of these Pokemon. Good amount of damage into the Dragonite, and Zamazenta into a third of its health. Body press into Raging Bolt. It had 4 HP, so no chance. James now 2 Pokemon left.
Yeah, and this is really kind of one of those things where if you are James and you can get rid of that Zamazenta, then the Dragonite for the Calyrex is just not a threat at all. So it will all come down to that last Pokemon that Montana's got in the back. We still haven't seen that here. Another Astral Barrage you feel will be enough to get rid of the Zamazenta. Of course, the Zamazenta does have access to Wide Guard, so can protect its partner and itself for this next turn if you so choose to, because you're not so threatened by the Brute Bonnet here. But you are going to be under threat from getting put to sleep, so that's maybe a way to check the Wide Guard. You go for the Astral Barrage, Wide Guard comes out, you go for the Spawn to the Zamazenta and completely shut it down. Get some nice damage onto the Dragonite in the meantime as well.
All right, well, Zamazenta, it's down to a third of its health, and with the Dragonite, maybe hopefully he's wake up sooner rather than later. No. Just trying to keep safe. Astral Barrage again. Dragonite is asleep. No damage into the Zamazenta. The Dragonite, we saw how much it took last time around, but of course, this time, ooh, so close. Dragonite just on a sliver of HP. Spore into the slot, but Dragonite's already asleep, so it's just going to be the damage. Sunlight gone as well. Photosynthesis defense. At the point you're at, might not matter, but...
Yeah, it might not matter too much. I think here you might want to be, I don't know, if the Dragonite stays asleep here, we can see James kind of hovering over that Seed Bomb to just get rid of the Dragonite, go for the single target, expecting maybe a Wide Guard. That is exactly what we see from Montana.
Making sure that you're good up against the Astral Barrage so no spread damage moves can come out. Dragonite was going to wake up on this turn too, and that's the extreme speed coming on through.
Oh.
Brute Bonnet doesn't have the defense boost, but it's still going to survive the turn, and this is where we see the single target attacks come on. Zamazenta drop to the Psychic, and James, such a strong spot with this Calyrex. That's going to be the Grim Boost. You get that special attack, you're at full health, you have the Focus Sash, and Seed Bomb is going to take care of the Dragonite. Montana only has 1 Pokemon left, and James looks to be in such a strong position.
Yeah, and you've got to expect it's probably that Chen Power to come in, and just that survival from the extreme speed, the Raging Bolt. So that is, a little bit not as good. Chen Power Field does give you a bit of a better option. Now you've got the Rage Powder on the Brute Bonnet that you can utilize to protect that Calyrex at least one turn, or you could just go for Sucker Punch is a little bit risky because the Thunderclap will probably supersede that, so that would fail. So you really want to just try and protect the Calyrex at all costs here. Astral Barrage go into that. The problem for Montana is it's got the sash. The Calyrex still got that sash, and you've got that redirection, which is so pivotal in this situation.
Yeah, so now Brute Bonnet is center of attention. Make sure any hit from this Raging Bolt is going to be diverted, and single target Astral Barrage plus one special attack. Raging Bolt takes so much damage. Thunderbolt now into the Brute Bonnet is going to bring these trainers to one Pokemon apiece. But again, this Calyrex, that Focus Sash. So Montana, even if you can try and go for any hit into it, you're just on a sliver of health, and Calyrex should be able to clean this up on the next turn.
Yeah, and it looks like that is what is going to happen here as the battle is cancelled, and James Evans taking a 1-0 lead in this top 4 match.
Now 1 game away from playing tomorrow Championship Sunday. After such a strong set from both of these trainers, this Sun team as well. I mean, we got to see James go for the approach where he really just utilized all of those tools, seeing that Brute Bonnet and the Raging Bolt. But again, that Calyrex, the amount of damage and everything else, and even just a heads-up play for those Spores. I mean, it was a good match, but James, it just seemed really strong from his end.
Yeah, and I think from the get-go, I think the Terastallization on the Koraidon was necessary, but the Flame Charge was key to that because it put so much pressure on and made it very difficult for Montana to get any momentum swing. And I think one thing you need to do if you're Montana going into this next game is if you're going to take the Flame Charge, I think you need to have the follow-up on your attack. If you're going to go Astral Barrage, you need to go Body Press into that Pokemon to get rid of it, so it's not a threat the next turn, because it was very difficult to deal with, especially when James was able to bring out that Brute Bonnet, pressure the Calyrex with the Sucker Punch, and it freed up then the Koraidon to chase down the Zamazenta, which made it very difficult to get any kind of swing that we were looking for. So I think some adjustments are needed to see if we are going to see them in this game too.
I mean, if there is an adjustment, now would be the time to see it with Montana back against the wall heading into game 2. It's going to be Raging Bolt and Koraidon once against for James. But Montana, we will get to see the switch up with the Calyrex Shadow Rider next to the Amoonguss.
Yeah, and I think a little bit better maybe, keeping one of those restricteds in the back for later, and maybe allowing your one of them to deal with the one that's out in front of you and keep the other one preserved in the back to come in that late game might be a better way to deal with things, but we'll have to see how things play out. You've still got the risk of that Flame Charge here. If it goes into the Calyrex, we know the damage there. If it goes into the Amoonguss, it's going to do a little bit more. Super effective, of course. The Amoonguss probably not the one Pokemon that you want to look to Terastallize here, because it's got that Water Terra typing, so the Raging Bolt really keeping check of that. So do you want to go for the Calyrex again, or do you want to save that Terastallization for later and just try and get damage onto the field now? Use the Amoonguss as the sponge that it is to draw in those single target attacks that both these Pokemon on James's side have, and that'll give you that security that you've got that Focus Sash going forward in the match, and just say, okay, I'm going to get damage that I need now. Amoonguss goes down, and we'll go on from there.
We'll go on into the first turn of the match. Yet again, we get to see that Terastallization as that Calyrex. Again, we get to see the Ghost type. So a little bit of a tale of what's to come as eyeing up a big Astral Barrage onto James' end of the board. Koraidon wants none of it though, and is just protecting. Make sure that it can make it through its turn as Amoonguss looking to keep its partner Pokemon safe as well with the Rage Powder. Redirect anything from this Raging Bolt. The Astral Barrage is only going to be into the Raging Bolt. Again, we had called out the item on this Raging Bolt is the Assault Vest. So it's going to be a hit that's taken a little bit better, but still not appreciated with the help of that Terastallization. Dropped to about half, but just over. Raging Bolt off with the field, though. Amoonguss just a little bit of chip, and James will be able to bring out another Pokemon. Is he going to be keeping with the same Pokemon that he had in that first game? Yes.
Yes, it looks so, and Brute Bonnet might be the Pokemon coming out onto the field, and there was the threat there as well. You know, you could have seen the Amoonguss go for the Spall, so you can see why the Koraidon's maybe protecting there, as well as James just want to see what Montana decides to do. Do you want to lock in to that Terastallization on the Calyrex to maybe and just use that Amoonguss like we were talking about. Now you've got the Brute Bonnet on the field. That Sucker Punch isn't a threat because you've got the Rage Powder, although the one thing that you would say about that, it's still a threat because the Amoonguss is a grass type, and the Brute Bonnet will ignore that Rage Powder if it comes out. So the Sucker Punch is active, and it will do a lot of damage. It won't take it down because of the sash, but it is going to threaten this turn. So what do we see from the Calyrex here? Do we see it maybe protect this turn and a switch out from Montana, try and change up that board position? The risk is James sees through that, maybe goes for a Spore into that slot, expecting a switch on the Amoonguss. Things could get a little bit dicey, and it's harder to make a comeback from that point.
Yeah, so whether the Calyrex wants to stay around, go for an attack, go for a protect, it's not going for the switch though. It's going to stick around on the field as Corrado now is going to go ahead and Terrasilize into that fire type. Again, making sure the damage with something like that Flame Charge is activated, especially when you're eyeing up that juicy threat of the Amoonguss onto the opposing end of the field. Notably, is not going to go for any sort of rage counter, any sort of follow me. Astral Barrage goes first, a lot of damage, but Brute Bonnet is going to soak that up. Now Flame Charge going into the opposing end, but instead into the Amoonguss. James deciding to target that down, get rid of that mushroom. Now it's going to be only Brute Bonnet to move on this turn. But yeah, when we see just the Calyrex now onto the opposing end of the field, yes, it got a lot of damage out, but it's also going to be a Pokemon that's asleep on this next turn. Yeah,
it's a really good play here from James, making full use of that Flame Charge, knowing that once I Terrasilize in the sun, going to be enough to get rid of that support option in Amoonguss, which is huge. Then that frees up the Brute Bonnet, and I love the option not to go for the Sucker Punch here, to maybe try and not waste a turn. I'm going to go for the Spore and shut down that option, so you don't need to worry about it this next turn because it's got that guaranteed sleep turn. Now the Zamazenta comes out onto the field. Yes, it pressures the Brute Bonnet, but you've got the Koraidon in a position where it can hit for super effective damage. It can't go for that collision course into the Zamazenta, and you know, I think it's really difficult. You lose the Koraidon in that situation, you get some good damage onto the field, but then it opens the door for the Calyrex to then come back onto the field.
Yeah, when you're looking at this Koraidon, yeah, you have the speed, but when you're still eyeing up the Zamazenta, if the Koraidon wants to go for an attack, that Zamazenta has that defensive boost, and if you try and target down the Calyrex while you can, the Zamazenta can go ahead and fire off an attack into you. Brute Bonnet could be good to try and redirect something, but then you might lose a little bit of staying power, so you really got to see what you want to anticipate on this turn. Zamazenta wants to kind of scout things out as well and will protect. This will, of course, if we see a target into that slot, could try and waste some time to allow the Calyrex to wake up. But James is going to target that down. The sash has been broken, and we are going to get another speed boost. Calyrex is nice and fast asleep, of course. That is going to be the first mandatory one. And Spore just covering that slot. See if you can catch the Zamazenta, but now, I mean, Calyrex is in danger at waking up at any point.
Yeah, and this is a really hard decision for Montana because of that additional Flame Charge there. You can, if you're James, you just go for the Flame Charge again into the Calyrex and you Spore from the Brute Bonnet into the Zamazenta, and then Zamazenta's got the choice. It will go before the Brute Bonnet, but where do you go? Do you go after the Koraidon, get rid of that threat, or do you go after the Brute Bonnet and shut down that line of support?
I mean, anticipate making sure you're covered in case there is a wake up. Sucker Punch won't do anything. Calyrex stays asleep. Flame Charge into the opposing slot, and still a lot of damage into the Zamazenta. Body press into the Brute Bonnet, but Brute Bonnet will survive. 6 HP, so that pressure into the Calyrex still there on this turn.
Wow, that's a huge survival, massive here for James. Now in the position where you can go for that Flame Charge into the Calyrex or the Zamazenta, or you go the collision course into that slot, pick that up, and you still can pressure the Calyrex each and every turn with that Sucker Punch. There's no way of that option not going into the Calyrex, so it is kind of pinned. Even if it wakes up, you're keeping it in check, and all you need to do with the Koraidon now is just go after that Zamazenta here. Montana has got one Pokemon in the back, so does have an option to switch around. Maybe you could do that with a Calyrex.
Zamazenta protect, eyeing up the Calyrex Shadow Rider. It is sticking around. Flame Charge into that slot. Again, the sash had already been broken, so Calyrex will be taken down on this turn. This Koraidon, it has been putting in so much work in this match.
Yeah, and I love what James is doing. You don't see the Sucker Punch there. You're kind of almost forcing Montana to make these correct decisions each and every turn. As we see the Spore goes into the Protect there, so Zamazenta saved for at least one more turn, but so much pressure coming on to the field. Now the sunlight fades, the photosynthesis wears off, and the boost to those fire type attacks is gone. But a bit of a change up here as the Chen Pao now enters the field.
And Qianbao coming out makes this quite interesting because, of course, this Koraidon has, I mean, a lot of speed. But of course, Xian Pao does have ways to get past that with the Sucker Punch, but this is where the Brute Bonnet is really good at keeping that Pokemon safe. So it is still a tricky situation here. Brute Bonnet now, Rage Powder, have to eye up what this Xian Pao has gone for on this turn. But of course, it will be the Koraidon that moves forward, Collision Course. And this is where we can see the item choice actually really make the difference, because Xian Pao, of course, is just going to drop.
Yeah, and that's huge here, being able to get rid of that, get rid of the Sword of Ruin. So it's only the Zamazenta versus the world here. And will it be enough to get rid of this Koraidon that's been so pivotal, so well piloted by James in this game too?
James has been in such a commanding spot throughout this entire set so far. From the get-go, this Koraidon has put in all of the work. James Evans has been a world champion before. He has been one of the top trainers that we've had in the North America region for a long time. And with such a strong, convincing series, 2-0, and is going to be here Championship Sunday to see if he can earn himself yet another world champion title.
Absolutely incredible by James and by both of our trainers. Huge congratulations. We will not be seeing the last of James. He will be in Championship Sunday tomorrow, which is just incredible. And I cannot wait to see how he performs in that final.
And you can see how much this means to him. James has been a trainer who puts in so much work every single tournament and a lot of pressure on himself as well. And he has been someone who's pushed through a lot, and to be able to see it all just come to fruition, be in the World Championship Finals, I mean, of course, it just means absolutely everything. So proud of him. And after such a strong set as well, I mean, it's so deserved.
Yeah, so deserved. And I mean, all credit to Montana for the top 4 finish. I mean, that is incredible. And watching their journey get to this stage of the tournament has just been incredible. But you've got to give so much credit to James, because I think James identifying the advantage that he had in this matchup with the Koraidon, how pivotal it was, and utilizing the Koraidon so well in this game, getting that flame charge off early on, putting itself above the Calyrex in particular, putting on that pressure, and then really flexing the Brute Bonnet at the perfect time to really shut down all of those options that Montana had and make it almost impossible to get any sort of comeback in that game.
I mean, the key word was the pressure from the get-go in that match.
Yeah.
There was just so much, and being able to get the speed boost, but never really just let go of that, well, just go button, right? And one Spore was all you really needed to really just dictate the pace. And even then, such a strong position, because the Zamazenta was constantly pressured, and the Calyrex Shadow Rider, I mean, if it wakes up, we got to see that James, even on one turn, the Sucker Punch, covering all of these options to really make sure that once he had a lead in the match, that there wasn't really this opportunity for Montana to find a way back into it.
No, definitely not. And I think the one thing that James did so well in that game, and he's probably done it throughout this championship, is splitting the attention of your opponent, where they have to make a choice on one Pokemon, but you go after one Pokemon and the other one's going to punish you. And I think it's really difficult, those board situations, because you go after the Brute Bonnet, right? But you leave the Koraidon alone. So the Koraidon's going to get an attack off into another Pokemon, pick up a knockout, which could be pivotal, change the game around, flip it on its head, and take it all the way for James. And you don't go after the Brute Bonnet, you go after the Koraidon, and you get put to sleep. So what you do, and I think James is a master at using those techniques in battle and making it so hard for an opponent to get any sort of grip on the game.
I mean, he is a former world champion.
Yes,
this has been
very true.
Yeah, in the seniors division, he made waves there, and someone who didn't necessarily slow down when he got to the masters division. We've been able to see him NAIC champion. We've been able to see him take down regional, and just someone who's always been able to consistently go through these tournaments. And yeah, even just his growth as a player to see has been really, really nice. Even just the mentality, how he approaches the game. And I know going into this weekend, he was, I mean, so nervous about everything. It's like the most stacked world championship of all time. And to see the work that he put in really pay off. I mean, you saw the expression on his face after, how much it meant. And it's really nice to be able to see the journey of a trainer and really be able to see where that journey has taken them.
Well, they've got an opportunity now. They put themselves in the best place possible to be already a seniors world champion. They can now take the crown in the Masters division, which is just, it sounds crazy to say. It's an incredible achievement, but to just be there in the finals tomorrow and be up on the center stage, James deserves it. He's done everything so well, and when we've been able to see him this weekend and look at his team, the concept, the way he's played, it's just been so well executed. And yeah, Like I say, I cannot wait. I'm very excited to see how James performs tomorrow in the finals.
And I'm excited to see who else is going to be making the way to the finals
that's it.
as
You
well.
know, we've got another top 4 to come, which is even more exciting, right?
Yeah, we have our one finalist now, and we still have an amazing match ahead to be able to figure that out. And you know, no matter who he's against, it is going to be an amazing match. But I am ready to hear from none other than James Evans, our world finalist, who's over on the stage now for an interview.
Thank you so much. I have the pleasure of introducing you to your first 2025 Worlds finalist, James Evans. Let's get a round of applause. James, the last time you were a Worlds finalist, it was back in 2018, and you ended up winning in the seniors division. How does it feel to be one of the first people to have the opportunity to get a seniors division win and a masters division win?
I say that it's not like I'm even acting either. This is all genuine. I just have no clue what to say. It's just one of those things that I never thought in my life would happen. I literally, I feel like I'm dreaming right now. It's unreal.
Well, maybe a little noise from the crowd will help wake you up. I mean, if you think about it, it's been a very long weekend. What were the challenges? I mean, what has been your toughest battle so far to get here?
Genuinely, probably before the tournament, just the battle with myself, funnily enough. I did not have a team for this tournament until 1:30 in the morning, the day of day one. I made the last change, and I was fully accepting I was gonna go 2-3 drop. I did not expect to make day 2. I did not expect to make top cut. I did not expect to make it this far at all. But I've been wanting this performance for a very, very long time. And you know, I had a lot of frustration. I would say I was just angry that I wasn't performing up to my expectations in practice. But that's never stopped me before from going to the tournament and clearing my head. And when I sat down for round 1 of day 1, I just said, you're gonna play good Pokemon today. Don't worry about whether you win or lose. You're here. And I just don't know how to describe it. I haven't been stressed about anything. I keep going into every match with a smile on my face, knowing that I'm gonna play good Pokemon. And I keep playing good Pokemon, and all my opponents have played good Pokemon. I'm very happy that it's all been good Pokemon.
I mean, we just saw some incredible Pokemon in that last match against Montana. Walk us through your game plan when you started out, game 1. What was the strategy?
So, oh my goodness. It's so hard to talk about things live. I'd say, like, my brain feels very fried right now, so I apologize. But I kind of just knew, I haven't been overthinking, I haven't been overstressing. I just kind of knew I'm gonna make plays that I know I feel comfortable with. If they don't work out, they don't work out, but I'm gonna trust my gut on this one. Just approach the matchup knowing that Brute Bonnet's very good into it. A lot of his team is physical attackers, and the one special attacker that he has that really wants to come to the matchup can't really do a lot to it. Spore's very effective into the rest of his team, so that means, you know, Crydon's probably going to be a bring, and if I can get Bonnet and Crydon in the right spots, then they can clear the matchup.
Well, James, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me here and for sharing your thoughts. I know that you feel like you're at a loss for words, but I think this is one of the most genuine interviews I've got to do with you. So thank you so much for that. And before we wrap things up, do you want to give any shout outs to anybody in the crowd or watching at home?
Of course. Shout outs to all my friends at school, my parents. I love you guys so much. Shout outs to my friends Kareem, Brady, Kylie, Zach, Joe, everyone else that I'm forgetting right now. I'm so tired, but NJ, Vishy, Beck, everyone that helped me construct the team, I couldn't be any more grateful. I couldn't be any more grateful to the people that have helped me become the person who I am today. And I'm able to stand here and just tell everyone that I'm in Worlds Finals again. But I would say, to reiterate, a special shout outs to my family, my mom, my dad, my sister, my grandmother, my dog at home, my grandfather. I love you all very much.
Thank you so much, James. Let's get one more round of applause for our first Worlds finalist. You'll be seeing James tomorrow on Championship Sunday take to the arena stage to battle one of our next 2 top 4 competitors to take the title of world champion in the year of 2025. We'll have to figure out who that will be though, so we're gonna take a quick break while we set up our next top 4 match, so please stay tuned everybody.